Show you what you need to fit it and how I fitted this. So alright, these are the main things you're going to need right here. These are sharpening stones. This is an India style sharpening stone, and this is a medium version. Okay, so they come in medium, fine, or coarse, and this is a medium 6-inch square India sharpening stone. Okay, this one is ultra fine. Alright, this is a hard Arkansas stone. So if you're looking to buy this, you want to look up hard Arkansas ultra fine. These come in fine and ultra fine for the hard Arkansas. The ultra fine I like because ultra fine you could almost use for everything. But when you have a lot of material to take off, the medium one is just a lot faster. And even with the medium one, it takes a while. So these are the main tools that you need to fit this barrel. And it's good to have these anyway. If you guys don't have some stones around, if you're going to be doing anything to your guns, I mean, I say even if you're going to clean your guns, it's good to have some stones around, because you may notice little pieces of steel here and there that need to get filed down a little bit. You know, we're not talking about taking off a lot of material. We're talking about just very lightly. And that's why we're using stones and not files, by the way. Do not use metal files. Okay, guys? There's times to use metal files for your gun, but not for fitting a barrel. So you might want to, maybe you don't have stones, but you have a couple small files. Please don't do it. You're gonna mess your barrel up. So make sure you get the right stones. Stones. This is really cool. My buddy Mike gave me this. This was from his uncle. He got this in Vietnam, and this is a little magnifying glass. It folds up, and you could use these for a lot of different things. But he got it in Vietnam because it's made for reading maps. So you would get your little maps of the region, and you put that on there, and you can see it a lot better. See that? Really crystal clear, and it's helpful. It's not necessarily a necessity, but it's very helpful to have one of these laying around. I use them all the time. So this is part of the barrel that I had to file here. Okay, so on the locking block part of it, and this helped out a lot just to make sure I was straight. So I'll show you what I did in a second. The only other thing you'll need is you want a really good vise. Alright, this one's pretty cool. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a vise, guys. I got a few different vices. I mean, out in my garage I have a real big vise, that I use for hammering, and it's got an anvil on it and everything. But this is just a basic tabletop vise. And what's really cool about this is all you need is a flat surface. And see the way that cranks down? Now it's on there nice and tight, and you can work with it. And then you can adjust it to any angle you want. Just tighten that up a little bit and it stays in the angle. Also, you want to make sure that you get one that has rubber coverings on the teeth. As you can see, this one comes with these little slip-on covers because you don't want to scratch your gun. So I use this when I'm cleaning my guns and barrels and everything else. So you should already have one anyway. Just makes cleaning your gun a lot easier. If you have a vise but you don't have little rubber covers like this, you can just use something like this. This is a paint stirrer that you can get for free at Home Depot, and I use these for all kind of stuff. These paint stirrers really come in handy. But as you can see, I just broke one in half, and you can just kind of go like that, and then you can put your barrel right in between there, or your gun. So I actually like wood. I like the wood better than the rubber. Just kind of a preference. I just the wood will give a little bit and really lock in. If it gives and it snaps a little bit, it'll lock in whatever you're trying to lock in. But anyway, the rubber's good too. So this comes in handy also. This is just a little light, just a little workshop light, and it's good because you're going to want to really get a light. As you can see, I can focus this. It's got a gooseneck on it, and you can focus it in really good on what you're working on. So the combination of this light and this magnifying glass, I mean, that's major. You really want to have those two. Okay, guys? And this light's pretty cool. It's got a magnet on the bottom, so it fits right on there, and it also has a clip. I got the light at Walmart. You could probably get these anywhere, but I just happened to find this one at Walmart. And this is from Harbor Freight, in case you're wondering. I also have some oil. I always keep a little gun oil around. Anytime I'm working on my gun, doing anything, I always keep some oil around just because it makes it a little easier. Also, when I'm filing, I'll put a couple drops of oil on it. Here's the simple part. Not so simple, but pretty simple. Alright, so first I got to tell you what I'm doing. Alright, so when I got the barrel out of the package, alright guys, now you're going to be able to use this, not just for Sig 226. This is the way you could fit any barrel to any handgun. There's slight variations depending on the gun, but for the most part, it'll be the same parts that need to be machined. Okay, what I mean is when you get an aftermarket barrel that's a semi-drop-in, this part's always going to be fine. You're not going to get a company like Bar-Sto that makes, like, this part is too big. Okay, so this part is typically always going to fit. The length of the barrel is always going to fit. The problem areas are always going to be all around here and by your, you know, your locking lugs and all that stuff. And that's because the chambers are slightly different from gun model to gun model. So they oversize the semi drop-in barrel slightly because they want you to get a perfect fit. So I'm glad that they do that. But what happened is when I took this out of the package, it wouldn't even, number one, it wouldn't go up. So this was, this part was so oversized that it wouldn't even slip into place. Okay? So the first order of business was to take some of the length off of this right here. Okay? Now it's very important, pay attention. You don't want to take it off of here. Alright? You don't want to take any length off of there. And the reason is because of your extractor. See the way that fits up and butts up against the extractor? There's a very little bit of space. And check this out, I'll show you how cool it is to use it with the magnifying glass. So it doesn't really matter with the camera, but you know, with the naked eye, the magnifying glass makes a big difference. But see how, I mean, that's a perfect proportion right there. So the chamber is really tight. They want you to get a really good seal in the chamber. Alright, they don't want any gases escaping. So it's a match grade chamber is what it is. So it's a lot tighter than your factory SIG chambers, because your factory SIG chambers are slightly looser on purpose, because the goal is to make it as reliable as possible. Even if the ammunition's a little bit messed up, they want it to still be able to feed and shoot, especially if it's a duty gun. Now with this match grade barrel, it's going to be very tight. Okay, so seeing how tight that barrel goes up against that extractor means that if you were to file this part of the barrel, okay, just a little bit, even a quarter of a millimeter off of this part of the barrel, and what's going to happen is this side of your barrel is going to wind up going right against your extractor. Okay, that's going to gum the whole works up. That's going to, you know, it's probably going to be useless after that. So you remember, you don't want to take any length off of here. Leave that exactly the way it is. Okay? So you want to take your length off of here. Now it would be a lot easier to just file that, because you don't have to worry about anything. You just go straight across it. With this, it's a little tricky because you just want to get that upper portion. You see where that lip is? I'm hoping you guys can see this and it's coming out clear on the video. But you just want to file down that upper portion a little bit. And this actually took about a good millimeter or two of filing. Now remember, I'm saying filing, but I actually mean stoning. Okay, I'm using a stone. Okay, so what I do is you put this in here, like so. Lock it in nice and tight. Doesn't have to be super tight. It's not going to go anywhere, so you just want to make it, you know, nice and tight. Put my light on. Remember, light's very important. You want to get, and what I'll do is when I'm filing, I'll keep the light right on there. Okay? So you start out with the medium file. Alright, because remember, in the case of this particular barrel, now every barrel is going to vary. You may only need a slight little bit off. Okay, if you only need a little bit off, you can just start with the ultra fine one. Alright, the ultra fine file will probably be everything you need if it's just a little bit. Alright, but in this case there needed to be quite a bit, so I started with the medium file. And then what I did is I just put that on there, and the harder you press, the more material that comes off. So you want to press, you want to hold it firm, because if you don't hold it firm, it's going to take you forever. You're just going to be going back and forth, and all you're going to wind up doing is polishing it. But if you hold it pretty firm and you run it across back and forth on there, then it'll take a good bit of material off. Now, most importantly, this is not for guys with ADD. If you got ADD, or if you have a hard time focusing on things, just go to a gunsmith or send it into the company. Alright, because the way you want to do it is take off a little bit of material and then put it back in the slide and refit it. And again, this is why I didn't just make a video the other night when I was doing it, because it would have been really boring. You know, imagine an hour of me just filing and testing it so you can see what I'm talking about. But as long as you have a steady hand, you want to take your time, make sure you're not distracted. That's why I did it in the middle of the night. You don't want to do it when kids are running around, or you know, your dogs, you know, want to go out for a walk or something like that. You want to make sure you're not going to be distracted. You know, if you need glasses, put your glasses on. You know, use your magnifying glass to double check and make sure you're straight. So that's what I use this for. I use this because I want to make sure that I'm being straight. Alright, now, it's not that difficult unless you got Parkinson's disease. Okay, no offense if anybody's got Parkinson's disease, but I'm just being real here. You know, if you got some kind of problem with your hand shaking, this might not be a good idea. But as long as you got a pretty good steady hold, and you don't have to be perfect, okay, but if you know, if you're pretty good at holding things steady, then that's all you want to do. I did everything by hand. I didn't use a guide. You can make it, there's things you could do. You can run a couple of pieces of board on either side of here and make like a guide for yourself. So that's another thing you could do. But I didn't do that. For this, I just really took my time, eyed it up, and you just keep on going back and forth with a nice firm grip and keep retrying it. Now, once I got it to fit into place on the slide, okay, so remember, that's what you're going to do. You're going to file down that part. And then once it goes up and locks in there nicely, you want it to be tight. You want it to be where it doesn't wiggle. Okay, if I put in my 40 Smith & Wesson factory barrel that this gun came with originally, there's some wiggle. You'll feel it wiggling back and forth and you'll hear it. With this, there's no wiggle. Okay, but it goes in there nicely. It slips right in, but it's nice and tight. Now, after I confirmed that it did in fact go into battery completely, then you want to put it back in the file, and then use this ultra-fine stone. Remember, this is a hard Arkansas ultra-fine stone. And it's not that this is a necessity, but this is just anytime I'm stoning anything, I always finish it with an ultra-fine stone. And the ultra-fine stone will cut, so don't let it fool you. A lot of guys think an ultra-fine stone is only for polishing, but this will actually cut if you push it hard enough. A lot of times, you know, even if I need to take away metal, I only use an ultra-fine stone, so it will cut. And then what I do is I just, same thing, I come across and I just file it down just a little bit more until it gets a nice polished look. And if there's any sharp edges, because the medium stone will leave it pretty sharp, I'll take the ultrafine stone and I'll go like this. Let me give you guys a little bit closer of a view here. But I'll run it this way a few times, and that'll just take away the rough edges. And I'll also come down the side like this. Same thing, just taking off any rough edge that the medium stone left. And then you're good to go. Now, one other thing I had to do with this barrel, and you may have to do the same, I think just about every Sig barrel that's a precision made aftermarket barrel, that's one way you're going to have to fit it, but there's another way. Another thing you're going to have to do to it. So after I got it to go into battery, okay, I thought I was done. I was excited, I was happy, okay, good, I'm finally done. But then I put it on the frame and it wouldn't rack. It was totally locked in there. It would not rack at all. I mean, the slide, I couldn't get it back in and lock the slide in. It wouldn't rack at all. So what you want to do is get yourself a factory barrel like this one. So this is my 40 Smith & Wesson barrel that came with this gun. And you want to, it's pretty simple. You just want to eye them up. And you know what, I should have showed you this. This is the first thing that you should do, by the way. So I'm kind of half-stepping over here. The very first thing you want to do, as soon as you pull this aftermarket barrel out of the package, the very first thing you want to do is compare it to a factory barrel. Alright, so it's very helpful. It's not a necessity. I mean, that's the part where a gunsmith comes in. You know, even a gunsmith is going to want to compare it to a factory barrel, but you know, a gunsmith that's been doing this sort of thing for a long time is just going to be able to start messing with it and know what to do. For all the rest of us, having a factory barrel handy makes a huge difference. So the first thing I did before I started filing or stoning anything, the first thing I did was compare them, and I took notes. Alright? Using my magnifying glass and my flashlight, I took notes at the exact differences. So before I even fitted it into the slide for the first time, I already knew that the aftermarket barrel was too big, because just looking at it, you could physically see that the chamber was too long. The I'm sorry, the outside of the chamber here. I call it the locking lug where it locks, but you guys can comment whatever this part of the barrel is called. Anyway, so you could physically see that it was too long. Another thing is that I noticed the feed ramp. The feed ramp on the aftermarket barrel was too long, and it still is. Okay? If you look at the feed ramp, the left side is the aftermarket one, the right side is the factory barrel. You see the way that aftermarket Bar-Sto barrel, the feed ramp is a lot longer on the underside? Okay, I'm talking about right here. Look at the difference between the factory and the Bar-Sto one. It's a pretty huge difference. So even though there's still a big difference now, it works just fine. As I said, I put 50 rounds through it. It cycles smooth like butter. But I took quite a bit of material off of there. You can see where I stoned it. See all these grooves right there? So this was actually a lot longer than it is now. I stoned quite a bit, at least a millimeter of material off of there. And after I did that, it was able to cycle and slide perfectly, just like it does now. So it's important to note, though, I can't stress it enough. Compare it to a factory barrel, because I'm not a gunsmith. I'm just an average guy that likes doing things on my own and would rather not send my gun off to somebody else. So, not being a gunsmith, per se, when I first pulled the slide back, I didn't understand why it wasn't racking, because the barrel itself fit into the slide, went into battery, and everything was fine. So it didn't make sense to me why it wasn't racking, but only when I compared it to the factory barrel did I realize that the feed ramp had way too much steel on the underside of it. And then upon taking some steel off, then everything worked phenomenally. So if I didn't have a factory barrel to compare it to, it may have took me a lot longer to figure out why it wasn't racking. Alright guys, so that's about it. This video is already super long, so I'm gonna cut it off. If you have any questions, leave them. But that's the gist of it. So just to recap, most important thing is your ultra fine and your medium stone. It can't hurt to have a couple other stones around too. You might want to have a fine stone and a coarse stone. I don't really find the need to have a coarse stone for really anything gun related. If it's anything that serious, I just use one of my files. But a medium stone comes in handy. The ultra fine stone I use all the time. So you want to have those two. Now, depending on the gun and manufacturer, you may have to file the other lug, where the recoil guide rod sits. And also, I had another Sig barrel before that I had to file the feed ramp down a little bit, just like so. So on that particular barrel, it was another aftermarket barrel, the feed ramp was a little bit too long. So I had to actually shorten the feed ramp by filing underneath of it. Same thing, just a little bit. Guys, a half a millimeter here and there makes a big difference. So in closing, remember, the most important thing is just take a little tiny bit of material off, just a few swipes, and then refit it. And then just keep doing that until it fits perfect. And that's what I did to this. So good luck, everybody. If you have any questions, leave them. Sorry for such a long video. Trying to do the best I can, but there you guys go. Enjoy.